Hey guys, it's Counting in my review for Coffee and Kareem. So what Coffee and Kareem is essentially about, and I'm not joking, this is literally the plot of this movie. We center on our main character, James Coffee. He is performing this operation of sorts. He's trying to he's trying to bring down this dirty cop and things like that, and he also is dating this new woman, and her 11-year-old son, Kareem, very quickly realizes that they are having sex and things like that, so he ends up basically accompanying him to this mission unbeknownst to him in an attempt to literally murder Coffee, and so he ends up witnessing this murder of sorts, and basically after doing so, he is now on the run. These two are forced to work together and basically try to finally bring these dirty cops to justice, but also figure out who could possibly be behind this whole operation. That's really all there is to say. Look, going into this movie, I wasn't really expecting all that much. Look, when you have a Netflix comedy, I've said it before, it could really go either way these days, but one like this really did not seem like it was going to be something that I was that interested in. It looked very bland, it looked very uninspired, and it very much seemed like one of those comedies that is on Netflix because, well, it's not going to work really anywhere else, and it very much seemed like one of those kinds of films. And so I went into this not really expecting much, and to be honest, I came out of it getting something way worse than I ever was expecting. This is absolutely the worst Netflix comedy that I have seen in a while. This is definitely very bottom of the barrel. It's probably one of the worst excuses for a comedy that I've seen in a while too, and absolutely one of the worst movies of the year so far, but we're just getting to it right now. But I think the main thing that really brings this film down is the cast here, because for a film like this to work, you need actors that are really funny, have a really good dynamic to them, but it's just not working in this movie. Ed Helms is the definition of an actor that is such a hit or miss actor for me, and unfortunately, here, it's very much the latter than the former. I wouldn't say that he's the worst part of this movie. He just seems so bored throughout it. He's the kind of character that just doesn't really have that much to him to begin with, and Helms doesn't really do much of anything to bring anything really to this character. He's just really annoying. He's like the perfect cop that doesn't really do anything wrong, but he's also like really raunchy, and he's just really just not fun to watch in this movie. There's no charisma that he brings here. There's no energy that he brings here. It's just a really boring performance. It almost kind of felt like he was sleepwalking through this movie. I wouldn't say it's the worst work Ed Helms has done, because it's definitely not. It's not on that level at all, but it's certainly one of his weakest performances that I've personally seen, because he's really giving very little effort here. But he's really not the worst thing about this movie. Absolutely the worst thing about this movie in terms of acting is this little shit, Terrence little Gardenhigh. Now look, I don't like to pick on child actors a lot. I know that they are inexperienced for the most part, but this really feels like one of those cases where this guy just wasn't ready. This kid was not ready to be an actor, and it really does show here because he's really bad in this movie. This is one of the worst child performances that I've seen in quite a bit. This performance basically just consists of him just being very foul-mouthed, just saying all these dirty things, not really having really any character to him whatsoever, and it almost just kind of felt like they just picked whatever kid they could think of. They didn't even really look into it. They didn't care about the talent. Just, if this kid can swear, if this kid can say raunchy shit, then fine, we'll get him. And I could not stand him throughout this movie. He's so headache-inducing. He rarely shuts up, and it's not to the point where it's like he's funny annoying. He's just really fucking annoying. I couldn't stand him in this movie. He was absolutely the worst thing about it, and the dynamic between Ed Helms and him, it's just not there at all. There is no chemistry between these two. You don't feel a dynamic growing throughout the movie, and it's just, again, a lot of this film, buddy cop movies like this, it's all contingent upon these two actors really selling it, and they really do not do a lot, and that's why this entire film crumbles really as a result, I think. Now, I will say the supporting cast in this movie really isn't as bad. Taraji P. Henson is very much wasted here. She's just really just kind of playing the concerned mother that's always just kind of freaking out, and it's just, I don't know who Taraji P. Henson's agent is. I've said this many times before, but I really hope she gets a new agent because, goddamn, she has not been choosing the right roles lately at all. The only role I think that suited her in the past few years is like Ralph Breaks the Internet, and even then it wasn't like that big of a role. So I really do hope that whoever is Taraji P. Henson's agent, that she gets her hands on something a lot better, because the past few years, whew, it's been pretty rough for her. This definitely isn't close to one of her worst roles, but it's definitely one of her most throwaway for sure. I will say the only real good performance in this movie, and the only thing I think that keeps it from being absolute, like, bottom of the barrel garbage, is Betty Gilpin in this movie. I thought she definitely did do a really good job. Her character we'll get into a little bit later, but I think she does enough to ground that character. She was the only one in this movie that felt like she was actually having fun, that felt like she was enjoying what she was doing and didn't want to die throughout most of it. It felt like a lot of the cast felt that way, whereas Gilpin kind of felt like a breath of fresh air. Like, she went into this wanting to enjoy it, and it very much does show, because she's really the only performance that really did stick out to me. Everyone else was just really bad here, and I really couldn't stand the acting throughout this film. But now let's get to the directing and the writing, which, holy shit, where do I even begin? The directing in this movie to me is really bad, but it's very baffling how bad it really is, because this is from the same guy that did Stuber last year, Michael Dowse, and I thought he did a really good job directing that film. It had a real style to it. It definitely seemed like it was a lot of fun. But maybe that was because Kumail Nanjiani and Dave Bautista just had such great chemistry, because here he completely drops the ball when it comes to this movie. He has really no direction here. It's just, let's be as raunchy as possible. Let's be dumb. Let's not really take this seriously at all. And it's just very lazy. It's very lazy directing. It didn't really feel like he had much of a vision. It didn't really seem like there was much passion behind this project at all. It just kind of feels like, hey, I just did a movie about a cop and some guy. Let's do another movie about a cop and some guy, except we'll have it be a kid this time instead of an Uber driver. And it just, that's what it very much feels like. And it's disappointing, because, again, I think Michael Dowse could be a really fun director. I've seen him do some stuff before that I've liked. He did an episode of Preacher. He's done some episodes of Future Man. He's done an episode of Man Seeking Woman. So he definitely does have talent. He directed Take Me Home Tonight, which I've heard is a pretty good film. So he definitely does have the talent. I really don't know what happened here. I really just think it's a testament to the fact that everyone is just really annoying in this movie, and the actors, there wasn't a lot going on here, acting-wise, and so I think that's really what crumbled it. But I also think it's very much the script in this film. I mean, there's not really a lot there that leaves this film, the script in general leaves a lot to be desired. So I could very much see why Dowse was so lazy when it comes to his directing, because the script does not exactly inspire confidence, to say the least. This is one of the laziest and almost nothing scripts that I've seen in a very long time. The story to this movie is absolute shit. It's literally what I told you. This kid is upset that this cop is smashing his mom. That's literally it. He's just upset about that, and he wants to try to, like, infiltrate one of his, like, one of his sort of, stakeouts or whatever, and just, like, kill him there, and it's just, the whole thing is just really badly written, and it just doesn't work at all. And I think my biggest issue with this movie is that I would be fine if there was a little bit more going on in the story besides that, but there's really not. Very quickly, when the kid gets involved, it feels like we're halfway through the movie, but it's really only, like, 20 minutes into the film, and that's because there's just so little story going on here. And that could potentially make for some really funny one-liners, some really funny comedy. But again, because these actors are not into this movie, and the kid, like I said, is not funny at all, it is very obvious that he is reading from a script. It is very obvious that he is not improvising in this movie. He is just doing what they're telling him to do. it just makes it very hard to watch this film. The script is just so bare bones in that way. I know nothing really about the main cop Coffee in this movie, and I know nothing about the annoying ass kid Kareem in this movie either. I know that he's super raunchy. I know that he's like trying to get with his teacher or whatever. I know that he says a lot of foul language, but again, there's really nothing funny behind that. I've said this before. There's nothing funny about a kid swearing. There has to be more of a joke than just that. That's not a joke. That's just something a kid is saying. Oh my god, he said a swear word. This film thinks that just having a kid say fuck is hilarious because he says it constantly throughout this movie. So clearly they feel that people are they're really trying to bank off this kid just saying things that a kid his age should not say. And the problem is, there just isn't really anything funny being said there. There's nothing funny going on situation-wise. There's nothing funny going on, you know, dialogue-wise. Just overall, it's so unfunny in that way, and it just really took me out of this movie very frequently, and I think that's really its biggest issue, and especially when these two actually start to bond, which they do try to force it doesn't work at all. The problem that Coffee is going through is so surface level. It's an issue that we've seen done 1,000 times before. It's exactly what you think it's going to be, and it isn't very well handled at all. I just don't think they did a good job giving really anything to these characters, giving them any sort of compelling arc whatsoever, and that really just, again, brings the entire film down. It gives me no reason to care about anything that's going on. I don't care about this operation that's going on. I don't care about, like, this cartel they're trying to hunt down. I don't give a fuck what's going on in this movie because the movie really gives me no reason to do that, and I don't think that they did a really good job to handle all that. And also, Kareem, again, as a kid, doesn't feel like a natural kid in this movie. He feels like a movie kid. He feels like what, you know, directors and writers think kids are like. I do not see Kareem and see, you know, kids like that. I don't see kids like Kareem, and I just don't think that Kareem is very well written in that way, and I think that's another thing that really does bring this film down. But again, there also just isn't a lot going on story-wise. You know, like I said, once they're hunted down by these dirty cops or whatever, a lot of it just becomes them just trying to run away, and it really feels like they're stalling. And eventually, when it's revealed what's actually going on there, it's so fucking predictable because they did, they did absolutely nothing to try to maybe make you think there's something more going on. They didn't do anything to try to do that, and I think that really does bring the film down as well. It's just, the script is an absolute mess. It's non-existent. There's so many things that just make no sense. You also have so many dumbasses in this movie. There's literally a scene in the climax where there's a grenade that's like near this guy. He literally just stands there. He stands there and he just lets it take him. He doesn't try to back up or anything. It's like, bro, what the hell are you doing? Just back up and you'll be fine. Just like run real fast and it won't get you. But no, he just stands there, and that's the level of idiocy we're dealing with in this movie, and that's the one thing that really took me out of it. Not just the really terrible humor that isn't working at all. It's just the non-existent script really brings the entire film down for me overall. The cinematography also is really not good here either. The action, I don't think, is even all that well filmed. There are a lot of points where it was honestly very hard to tell what was going on because there was a lot of shaky cam and things like that. The CGI and like the explosions and things like that especially, just they did not look convincing at all. There's also so many situations in this movie where these characters should be in grave danger. They should be very hurt. They should be physically injured by what's going on, but they come out of this completely fine, and it's just so unbelievable in that way. And again, because I didn't give a shit about these characters, it was that much harder to suspend my disbelief in that way. And so, yeah, the cinematography really falls flat. The score is really annoying. Just this constant, just incessant rap music that I couldn't stand. And I'm fine with rap music in this movie, but again, it feels like the film is just, it's trying to be so edgy and it's trying to be so modern in that way. And it's just, oh, I can't stand comedies like that. It's really annoying. And the editing in this movie is another huge problem, I think. The movie is way too short than it should be. It's only an hour and 21. It's really, without credits, I think only an hour and 21 minutes. And one, it is the longest hour and 21 minutes that you'll go through because it's very sluggishly paced in that way. But I also feel because the movie is so short, we're not able to really dive into anything. I think if this movie was at least the length of Stuber, I would have been a little bit more forgiving towards it because we would have had a little bit more time to dive maybe into Coffee or dive a little bit more into who Kareem really is, why he cares so much about this, have it beyond just this surface level conflict, have, you know, this whole sort of hunt actually have some weight to it, them being on the run have some weight to it, but they can't do anything because there's just simply not enough time to do that. Because no, we got to focus on some stupid scene of them going to a strip club and Kareem trying to ask out some stripper and things like that, because that matters so much more than the actual plot to this movie that's basically non-existent anyway. So we'll just you know, just fuck it. Just fuck it. That's the definition of this movie. Who cares about characters? Who cares about clever humor? You know, who cares about anything logic-wise? Just fuck it. We'll just make a film. That's all we care about, and it very much does show. With that plot alone, it's one of those films where you're just constantly questioning, like, how did anyone approve of this? What were they thinking when they went into this script? When they looked at this bare bones fucking script and thought, yeah, this is the one we should go with. They didn't try to do anything to try to improve it. It just really baffles me because there's so many directors and writers that are doing some really great stuff and they are providing some really great, you know, comedies out there. Comedies I think have been actually really good recently. There's been a lot of really good comedies out there. There's been many that I thought weren't going to be that great and they actually were. And you look at something like this and it just sets us back. It just sets us back. It reminds us of what the type of comedy you should not make. It's so lowbrow. It's so obnoxious in that way. And I frankly just couldn't stand it at all. And I do not understand why Netflix continues to make films like that. I don't understand why they go out of their way to distribute films like this. Why not try to, especially with things like The Irishman and Marriage Story, why not try to take a hold of some other, you know, indie type properties like Tiger Tail, for example. That's a film that just came out that I'm actually very excited to watch because I feel like that is something that Netflix should be taking hold of. But stuff like this, I just feel like they're above this at this point. I don't understand why this film was made. I don't understand what the point of it really was. I don't feel like there was much of a point to it overall, and it's just overall one of the laziest excuses for a comedy that I have seen in a very long time. It's entirely banking off some kid that really can't act at all, that's so annoying in this movie, that doesn't feel tangible in this universe. He doesn't feel like an actual person. He just feels like someone that is reading a script. It doesn't feel like someone that's real. The actors mostly seem bored, minus Betty Gilpin, who even her in this movie I eventually couldn't stand. Where they end up going with her I thought was really dumb overall. The action is really badly filmed. Like I said, the script is so non-existent in that way. There's so many logical errors in this movie, especially the ending, which is so corny. It's so fucking corny and stupid, and it just made no sense to me whatsoever. It's absolutely one of the worst films of the entire year, and I'm definitely going to give Coffee and Kareem overall a D-. But over, guys, to my review of Coffee and Kareem. Let me know what you guys saw of this movie overall. Left your thoughts, and we'll see you guys in my next video, and we'll see you guys for that. Okay, bye.